Dr. Seuss, the one guy who turned the concept of rhyming his specialty. Obviously, you know him for creating How the Grinch Stole Christmas, The Cat in the Hat, Green Eggs and Ham, The Lorax, Horton Hears a Who, and so much more. He's pretty much considered as a legend when it came to children's books, but he didn't just write books his whole career, he also worked in the film industry, and it only took 18 years of my whole life just to know that. In 1943, Dr. Seuss joined the US Army. He was put in command of the animation department of the 1st Motion Picture Unit. And yes, this was a thing, and mind you, this is around when World War II was in progress, so keep that in mind. And during his service there, he made cartoons, and let's just say that those cartoons weren't made for the general public. But even before joining the army, Dr. Seuss wrote an adaptation of his second children's book, The 500 Hats of Bartholomew Cubbins, which released in 1943, and it did pretty well and even got nominated for an Academy Award for Best Animated Short. And a year later, he wrote yet another adaptation, this time of his first children's book, It's a Thing I Saw on Mulberry Street, and also got nominated for Best Animated Short. After the success of those, the US Army turned to him to write 2 top secret films, Your Job in Germany and Our Job in Japan, though they're really not that top secret because some studios got the film rights to them and made their own versions. But what does all of that have to do with the main attraction I'm going to be talking about? Don't worry, I'm getting there. After all that, Dr. Seuss made yet another animated short, Gerald McBoing, which released in 1950 and actually won an Academy Award for Best Animated Short. At that point, Dr. Seuss was practically rising to the top, which encouraged him to make his next feature film, The 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, the weirdest red flag I've ever heard. And this was set to be a spectacular, something that's going to take children's imaginations to a whole nother level. It was supposed to be Dr. Seuss' biggest film yet, and when it released on July 1st, 1953, it bombed so bad at the box office that he never wanted to work on another film ever again. How unfortunate. Heck, it was so disastrous that Hollywood hid it for decades. Until now. Up until this point, I've been pretty aware of Dr. Seuss adaptations, from The Butter Battle in 1989 to The Grinch in 2018. And I only knew him just because he wrote children's books, but once I learned that he made an original movie, that caught my interest. And on top of that, no one really talks about this movie, which really makes me more interested. To be fair, there are so many movies that have been lost in time, but the fact that Dr. Seuss made a movie in general honestly intrigued me. Which is why I decided to break down my analysis into chunks. So the biggest question here is this movie really a wonder musical of the future? Well, it's far from wonder, I'll tell you that. The movie follows the story of Bart, who dreams himself into a fantasy world ruled by a diabolical piano teacher, enslaving children to practice piano forever, and right from there, things kinda get weird. The plot has a similar formula to Wizard of Oz, but not as lighthearted. If anything, it kind of feels like the movie Whiplash, but oddly bizarre and not as serious. The main attraction of the movie, I guess, is the Happy Finger Institute, yet again another weird red flag I've ever heard. And I guess the main purpose is to play the piano, which, if that was the case, why does the Institute have to be so big? Like seriously, it feels like a tour, and if anything, it really looks like a big city. And then there's the grand pianos. Why on earth do they have to be this long? And considering that 500 boys, yes 500, will have a part in playing them, how would they tell which note is high or low? Heck, if I were to play a song on this certain piano, I wouldn't know which note to start with. And the fact that those 500 boys have to sleep in their own cells is kinda messed up, and I know it's a dream and everything, but still. And apparently there's a prison for musicians that plays other instruments other than the piano. Quick question, why even bother? You could just simply kick them out. And then we move on to the characters, and oh boy do I have a lot to say about Dr. T. In real life, he's pretty much a strict piano teacher. In a dream, he's practically a dictator in his own institute. And apparently he hypnotized Bart's mom to be his assistant and fiancée, which I'm not sure that's a good way to go about it, but hey, what do I know about marriage? And out of all the movie villains I've seen up until this point, he's honestly lame. And yeah, his name is on the movie title, but either way, he's just a lame villain. And you know what's funny? The actor that played Dr. T actually played as Captain Hook from Peter Pan. And then we have Bart, the real star of the show. I guess he's just an okay protagonist. Mr. Z, I guess he was just okay as well. Bart's mom, I guess she was fine too. All characters are just fine, even though they're really not as memorable. Yeah. And I also want to add this. When I first heard of this movie, I heard it was set out to be dark. And from my opinion, it kinda is. When I first saw the clips to this movie, I had a good feeling that this movie was gonna be dark, especially how weird the movie was set up. And I had a good feeling that this movie wasn't gonna be innocent by first impressions. And I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. This guy right here honestly freaks me out. But when I actually saw the movie for the first time, it really changed my whole judgment. The movie is somewhat dark, but at the same time, it really isn't. But then again, I have a certain perspective when it comes to some movies, so there's either two reasons why. A, the movie isn't really as dark as people say it is, or B, I've watched so many dark movies to a point where I'm just completely casual about what's going on. I feel like it's option B, but I really don't know myself. But I do gotta give this movie credit. It really does feel like it came out of a Dr. Seuss book, which is the main reason why the movie feels like a fever dream, which I'll get into that later because this movie is a musical. Yep, you already know what it is. Let's quickly go through this soundtrack. 10 Happy Fingers. The movie's obsession with fingers is really making me uncomfortable, but the song overall is okay. Dream Stuff. If there's one thing I like about the songs from the 40s and 50s is that some of them can be very calming, and I like it, especially this song. Get Together Weather. I guess this one is okay too. Because We're Kids, another one that's pretty relatable in some cases. Dungeon Ballet, a musical number where prisoners uses normal instruments and weird looking ones. I guess this one is okay as well, but man, this drags on for a while. We Are Victorious. I really have nothing to say about this one. Dressing Song / Do-Mi-Do Duds. I guess this one is alright as well. Now that I think about it, I didn't know that this certain Dr. Seuss movie was a musical. And the soundtrack really doesn't make this movie the wonder musical of the future, in my opinion. Out of all the movies I've talked about yet, I feel like this one is a special case. Other than the fact that the movie has been hidden for years, I just find it interesting to see how Dr. Seuss made a feature-length movie with an original story. And the execution overall is slightly okay. The problem is the fact that the movie is live action. Now, why would I say this, especially that the movie was made in the 50s? Well, the world of Dr. Seuss has always been appealing, overall vibrant and colorful. And it just feels right to see something like this translated into animation. It gives life to the characters and the environments, making them way more appealing than the original source material, ensuring you that you're going to be in for a very good time. Now, if you try to translate it into live action, it could work if you know what you're doing, but even if that's the case, there are going to be some problems. And when it comes to the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T, it really reminds me of a dark fantasy film from the 80s. Not really, but still. But the live action approach really does make the movie look weird. But at least the movie has a lighthearted tone despite the overall conflict. Hopefully in the future that we get an animated adaptation of this movie, or at the very least a remake to give this movie some kind of attention. Because the movie is actually not that bad, and hey, at least it's better than a lackluster parody of a Dr. Seuss book. At that point, I just want to know what they were smoking when they made this. Remember American Pop? Yeah, that one animated movie I talked about like a year ago? It was a movie that showed off a family tree of musicians from point A to point B. While I guess it's an interesting story, there's really nothing much good here that I can take away from. I'm not saying the movie was bad per se, I'm just saying that it's not as entertaining as the other movies I saw up until that point. I just kinda talked about it for the sake of this guy, Ralph Bakshi, the guy that gained some controversy throughout his career. While American Pop was one of his works, It's just kind of more so just an average adult animated film. But which of his film did gain some controversy? Well, hopefully a slur might answer the question, but before I do, if you got kids who's watching this, get them out of here because I'm going to be talking about some pretty serious stuff. But with no further ado, introducing Coonskin, the balls they had to use that word as a title. This animated crime film is Ralph Bakshi's third animated feature. Buckle up, folks, things are about to get wild. During the production of Heavy Traffic, Bakshi already pitched a new film, Harlem Nights, and we're not talking about Eddie Murphy, and hired several black animators to work on it, including graffiti artists. And mind you, this is around the time when black animators were not widely employed by major animation studios. During production, the film went under several titles, including Harlem Days and Coonskin No More, and I'm so glad that they didn't use that as a title because that would have been so wild. But the film had a hard time when it released on August 20th, 1975 because not only it got mixed reviews, but only 2 weeks after it released, the distributor behind it went bankrupt. And obviously, it took a stab at the African American community. It depicts us as slaves, hustlers, and for the streets. It's a racist film to me and very insulting, highly objectionable to the black community. The product of a crippled hand and a paralyzed mind, Bakshi doesn't have much affection for man or womankind, black or white. At that point, the movie was driven out of theaters by a misguided minority. I guess that's one way to go about it. I knew the movie was racist, but I did have my eye on it for a while because it did intrigue me, and then again, I'm always down for anything. But after I've seen it, I found a new perspective on this movie. So toughen up everybody, because this film offends literally anyone with rights. The movie has two different stories, with plot A being a prison break with two black guys trying to get their friend out of the system, while he is waiting outside of the prison with an old man. To pass the time, the old man tells them a story, which transitions us to plot B, the real deal. Plot B centers around Brother Rabbit, Preacher Fox, and
Brother Bear,
rising to the top of the organized crime racket in Harlem, encountering corrupt law enforcement, con artists, and the mafia, and a satire of both racism within the Hollywood film system and America itself. The entire animated fable is practically a big reference to folk tales from Uncle Remus. Now you may ask, who is Uncle Remus? I don't know either, and I kinda wish I researched about him beforehand. But I'ma do a quick research about him to see for myself. Oh, now I'm familiar. Uncle Remus is a fictional character and narrator of a collection of African American folk tales, or as a structure, Uncle Remus is a big collection of animal stories, songs, and oral folklore, serving as a storytelling device who reminisces about the plantation life in the Old South. Don't worry, I'm getting there. But to make it simple, he narrates the stories that usually centers around Brother Rabbit. But what does animal stories have to do with plantation? Well, Brother Rabbit represents a resistance figure for enslaved individuals who uses trickery and wit to challenge stronger animals, who represents white enslavers. Because of these stylistic choices, these stories has gone controversy in American literature. While I'm not familiar with the stories, there was one movie that I remember that was based by them, Song of the South, which also garnered controversy when it released. Heck, I only knew about it to begin with was because of a music video.
Yay, my oh my, what a wonderful day.
Ah, the good times. But when it comes to Coonskin, they just kind of more so threw in characters from the Uncle Remus stories. Brother Rabbit, Brother Fox, and
Brother Bear.
And I'm assuming that the animated fable reminisces criminal activity in Harlem. But where does the racial portrayals come into play? Everywhere, immediately when you start the movie. And it's not just black people, white southerners, Italians, even homosexuals. Even the depiction of Jewish characters stems from stereotypes portrayed in Nazi propaganda. What? Again, these filmmakers had balls. They weren't scared to take the risk, which is honestly saying a lot. And it gets wild from there, man. There's a scene where a cop goes from racist and homophobic to going on a frenzy naked while wearing blackface. And on top of all of that, there are also vignettes depicting good old Miss America, who personifies the United States, usually seducing a man who represents the African American populace only to beat them to a pulp or kill him. Man, lust can really do something to you. What if you want to do an animated film or short, but you don't want to go through all the effort of creating all these places, because that usually takes time and brain power? Well, you could just take a picture of literally anything and just throw your characters in there. That's practically the case with Coonskin, animation overlaid in background photos and live action footages, and it's executed somewhat okay. And instead of using rotoscoping like we saw in American Pop, they use an art style that some people are familiar with in Ralph Bakshi films. At least it's a whole lot better than whatever on earth this was. The only thing I can say about the animation is that the background photos are never consistent. While they did use painted backgrounds, 95% of the time it's just filled to the brim of background photos. Though it oddly reminds me of those Zelda games that was made for the Philips CDI. Yeah, those. But there are some good moments with the animation here, like this shot where the animated characters are talking to real life humans. Like, that looks pretty good. Even in this shot where the animated character is walking and the humans are looking at it, like, that's a nice touch. It actually makes me want to make animations like these someday. So now that I've seen this movie and gave myself time to think it through, I finally came to a conclusion. I got nothing.
What?
No, like seriously, I got nothing from this one. And it's insane, especially that I had my eye on this movie for months. I could say the animation is the only good part of the movie, but it's all just stereotypes from the beginning to the very end. Clearly the movie wasn't made for the faint of heart, and it should be pretty obvious why. But is the movie somewhat entertaining than American Pop? I guess, but outside of the animation, there's really nothing much to write home about really. All I can say is that Coonskin is an animated film that has a fun time making fun of African Americans and everybody else. But I feel like there's a movie that was also based by the Uncle Remus stories that I forgot about. There was this, Song of the South, and one more. Oh, it's been a long time since I've seen this one, hasn't it? You know, now that I think about it, I always spend my time talking about forgotten movies or just underrated. While I talk about movies that people actually like, most of the time it's just movies that have been lost in time or people just don't know about, because it's usually an interesting topic to talk about. Instead, I could just talk about movies that people actually like. Or I could just talk about the crappy ones. Yeah, that's always an option. I obviously have a thing for bad movies, especially if that certain movie has a bad story, the animation is garbage, or the characters are just flat out obnoxious, or the movie is just flat out bad from the very beginning. It's not because the crew who worked on this are bad at what they're doing, it usually depends on how much effort you put into it, no matter how small the budget. Like the animated movie Flow had a $4 million budget and that won an Oscar, because there's a lot of effort put into this one, which is something this one doesn't have. War of the Worlds, that one novel that I'm not entirely familiar with. But at least there's 3 adaptations of it, the one in the 50s, the one in 2005, and one with Ice Cube. I'm not even gonna lie, like, I don't even know why I'm doing this in the first place. I've seen the trailer and I'm just kinda stunned by the fact that this was coming from Universal, one of the major film studios in the industry. It's like when Square Enix, one of the biggest video game companies, released Balan Wonderworld, a game that's clearly half-baked. Why did they thought it was a good idea? Well, because Universal was intrigued by the idea of using Screenlab technology, which was something used before and unfriended and missing. And apparently this movie has been in production since 2020, and you'd think they would just use all those 5 years to improve the movie somehow, but nope. Universal released the movie on Prime Video on July 30th, 2025 with all the confidence they had, and y'all should already know the rest. And I honestly can't believe I'm actually doing this, but I'm gonna do something that I never did for Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate. Actually watching it. Ice Cube, gotta love him. He plays as a government agent who spies on anyone through literally anything. Drones, airplanes, even refrigerators. Yeah, you heard that right. I don't care if he's a government agent, you just kinda maxed out levels of creepy here. But that's not all he does, he can hack into anything, even Tesla cars apparently. Now I'm sure not to get a Tesla. And that's practically the whole movie. Surveillance, hacking, a lot of video calls. That's just one way to use screen life technology, which honestly feels lame for a sci-fi thriller. Because Ice Cube just kinda stays in his office throughout the whole movie till the climax comes around. Even when the invasion started, he just never left. Like, I know you work for the government, you have to do your job, I understand all that, but at least turn on some common sense, dude.
These locations are our global response headquarters, our most sensitive targets, and they're taking them out one by one.
But other than the invasion, there's also the Disruptor and Goliath. Goliath is a big collection of data, which is practically an all-you-can-eat buffet for the aliens. And yes, these aliens can consume data, and the government knew about this since the 1940s, but the Director of Homeland Security doesn't really care about the aliens, more so the safety of other citizens. Right. The Disruptor tried to warn everyone about Goliath, but the Director of Homeland Security doesn't want everything to be exposed, so he just kinda put him on the FBI's most wanted list. And to cap it off, the Disruptor is also Ice Cube's son.
It's you! It's you!
Why should I care? I don't know. Oh man, where do I begin with the visual effects in this one? The aliens are obviously the worst part of the movie so far, it just kinda looks very cheap. The model is fine, I really don't have a problem with that, but y'all didn't put any composition effects or something of this sort? It's not Birdemic, but y'all could have done literally anything to improve the visual effects. Not only that, the use of green screen is so obvious you couldn't even miss it even if you tried. That's it, that's all I gotta say. The movie is so terrible that I'm not even gonna put any effort to talk about it. But why even bother using screen life technology on this movie? Well, it will be a modern spin on War of the Worlds. I mean, I guess that's one way to do it, but I'm honestly done here. It might as well be a long YouTube video because it really doesn't feel like a cinematic experience at all. And that's all I got from this one. It feels like a very cheap project that everyone who worked on it put very little effort to. And I'm not gonna bother doing the outro. Editor, just do the thing. Watership Down. You can already tell from this cover you're gonna have a bad time here. I might look back to this one, not with my family, God no, just a movie that I can only watch by myself and no one else. Heck, if I'm actually prepared, I might check out Martin Rose's other film, The Plague Dogs, because Jesus Christ is somehow even darker than Watership Down. But I am going to be seeing some pretty messed up stuff in my life, so I might as well get this out of my chest. The Plague Dogs. Someone had to be an idiot to let them out, based on a book by, whoa, Richard Adams? So not only he worked on Watership Down, he also worked on this one too. Wow, what a revelation. Anyway, this is one of those animated movies that clearly isn't made for the faint of heart because it's a friendly reminder to good old reality. It sucks, but we gotta keep moving forward. Even though it's made by the same crew who worked on Watership Down, some people from San Francisco joined in on the fun. Even Brad Bird was involved, which you may know him for The Iron Giant, The Incredibles, and Ratatouille. With that, the movie spread it all over theaters on October 21st, 1982 in the UK and December 16th, 1983 in the US. I really don't know what happened there, and oh my god, that's gotta hurt. Despite not doing so well in the box office, it did okay critically. Apparently, the movie was originally unrated because they definitely did not want to make that same mistake for Watership Down. However, when they released that bad boy in the DVD, it was rated PG-13. I guess that's one way to do it, I assume. This is one of those animated films that has been in my head for a while, but didn't have the balls to actually check it out for myself. Though I've heard a lot of people saying that how The Plague Dogs is somehow even more darker than Watership Down, which is actually why I saw Watership Down and talked about it first, so I can anticipate how bad this one can be. After all these years of this movie just sitting in my head, I feel like I'm ready to actually check it out. And if you love animals with all your heart, I don't even know why you're still here, cause this movie's gonna mess you up good. The movie follows the story of Ralph and Snitter. I am not making this up either. That's actually their names, just Ralph and Snitter. Anyway, they escaped from a research laboratory in Great Britain. However, they struggle to survive under the harsh conditions in the wild. And right off the bat, the movie starts off with Ralph drowning in a water tank. Now, what's the purpose of this research other than giving the dog PTSD? Obviously, the movie highlights the cruelty of animal research, practically telling us that humans are jerks to all creatures, big or small.
Let me tell you what happened when I was ill. First of all, the white coats made me better, as I said.
Girl, I don't give a fuck. It's clearly one of the biggest issues within modern society, which honestly makes me feel guilty now that I think about it. Like, you take a random animal and instead of letting it live its life, you abuse it to run tests, experiments, research, or just to see if this certain makeup product work. While it may not be considered as a big deal to some people, there are reasons through media why this kind of stuff is considered as a red flag. Because you know what they say, what goes around comes around. So I'll give the filmmakers props for exposing the brutal truth. And besides, it's not like the movie can't get any darker than that.
Dear. Come on, that's it, fella. Come on, up we go.
Holy sh**, I really need to stop saying stuff like that. But to be fair, why did you have your shotgun pointed to your face, you idiot? I'm sorry, it's just, talk about a rookie mistake. But you might be wondering, why does the military care about these worthless dogs anyway? Well, there are rumors about these worthless dogs being affected with the bubonic plague. That's where this word comes into the picture. These dogs can't get a break. And remember how Watership Down got a happy ending? Well, this movie ends up with Ralph and Snitter swimming into the ocean trying to find this island. And then the credits rolled. I mean, we see the island during the credits, so they could have made it. Right? Considering that the movie was made by the same team who worked on Watership Down, the animation here is practically the same. Everything is detailed, the animals are realistic, and so on. However, there is one new thing added to the table. Humans, and they look okay. What do you want me to say here? And remember how Watership Down had gore, which is why it traumatized a whole generation? Yeah, the Plague Dogs has a lot of it. But other than that, that's all I can gather about the animation. You know, I thought this movie would have me feeling some kind of way, something that I haven't felt before in a long time. But considering that I'm a tough nut to crack, it didn't. But I think the movie is pretty good. It does a good job showing how this isn't a good thing. Even though the movie is more graphic, it's really not necessarily darker than Watership Down, but it's up there. And I'm finally glad that I got these movies out of my chest, considering that they've been stuck in my head for years. They're both great films, but I feel like Watership Down has something more to it. Because I thought Watership Down was going to be the darkest thing I've ever seen yet. But when I actually saw it, it felt calm despite the
Runs blocked with dead bodies.
While there is much to love about these Martin Rosen movies, I feel like Watership Down is more entertaining than The Plague Dogs. And the only thing that makes me go back to it is the soundtrack. Now that's more like it. Anime!
Think of a big black man chasing you!
Gotta love them sometimes, and I'm a sucker who watches anime. And if you have a problem with that, I really don't know why you're still here. Look, I love watching a Disney flick from time to time, but as I mentioned before, I just want to watch movies that are made outside of the States. I don't want to keep my taste exclusive from America, I want to expand it some more. And what better way to do that is by watching some anime movies. Porco Rosso, Howl's Moving Castle, Ghost in the Shell, and who could possibly forget Akira?
Leave me alone!
Why wait every Sunday for a new One Piece episode when you can watch one of the One Piece movies? Oh, I guess I spoke too soon there. What on earth is happening here? I love watching them. They're some of the greatest things I've seen in a while, because I definitely needed a pick-me-up after watching Fantastic Planet. Oh boy. But right now, I feel like watching an anime movie that's a psychological thriller. Oh, that's more like it. Perfect Blue. What a perfect title for a jazz album. Based on a novel by Yoshikazu, this is considered as one of the best anime films there is. this might be fun. I think it's because it was coming from Madhouse of all studios. While it doesn't come close to, say, I don't know, Mappa, they did work on some pretty cool projects. Summer Wars, Tokyo Godfathers, Millennium Actress, and Paprika. Now this is the Fever Dream experience. Originally, the author wanted a live-action film based on it. However, due to financial issues, it was downgraded to a direct-to-video, and then on the way down to direct-to-video animation. The movie was originally made as a video animation for a narrow market, especially that psychological horror wasn't a big genre when it came to Japanese animation at the time. And when I mean video animation, I'm mostly talking about direct-to-video anime. They just call it that in Japan for some reason. With that, the movie showed out in theaters on February 28th, 1998 in Japan, and oh, and I know it garnered critical acclaim, but man, that's something. Now, I'm well aware of this movie, so I pretty much know how unsettling it actually was. And when I first heard of it by first impressions, I kinda stayed away for a while for the sake of my mentality. However, as time went by, I actually saw the trailer and I thought to myself, this is interesting. I should watch it! And considering that I'm completely casual when it comes to these psychological horror films, there's literally nothing that'll have me at the edge of my seat. So I guess the only question I can ask here is this movie really as scary as people said it was? Let's find out. The movie follows the story of Mima, a member of a Japanese idol group who retires from music to pursue an acting career. As she becomes a victim of stalking by her obsessive fan, gruesome murders takes place and she begins losing her grip on reality. Now, everyone has a favorite celebrity at some point in their lives, even I have a few, and meeting those celebrities can be the greatest day of your life.
Oh my God!
Despite their fame and wealth, they're still human at the end of the day, so they clearly have boundaries that we gotta respect. However, there are some fans that are so obsessed with their favorite celebrities, they're not always gonna take the hint, like my college roommate. It really comes to a point where they start stalking on them or do things just because they're that obsessed. Which is honestly kind of pathetic now that I think about it. Like, get a life, people! And the crazy part is some celebrities met their downfall because of these creeps. And oh boy, does Perfect Blue take that kind of conflict and crank it up. But who is the stalker in this story? Despite the fact that I can tell that he hasn't showered in 7 months, what happened to you, man? You used to be a bright individual with a bright future ahead. And now you look like Quasimodo's twice removed cousin, spending the rest of your life stalking on this one girl when you can literally be a doctor. Truly a disgrace to the family.
I'm protecting my dear Miminin, what do you think?
Wait, what? Ain't no way that's his actual voice, like, come on now. Oh man, it's so hard to take him seriously now. But anyway, is there any red flags on this stalker? Well, despite the fact that he always knows where Mima goes, he also tries to rape and kill her. Now, why would he do this? Because I thought he was obsessed with her.
I'll always be with you and I'll never change. You're the only one I can depend on.
Oh yeah, I forgot there's 2 conflicts in this movie. Stalking and a split personality. For some context, Mima goes from singing to acting. Okay, great. She becomes a little nervous at times, but other than that, she does alright. But later on down the road, it slowly becomes, how do I put this? Sexual. Yeah. Just because a creepy photographer wanted to take naked photos of her.
That's it. Hold it right there. You look beautiful. Yeah, just like that. Part your lips a little.
From the stress of filming, her regret of leaving her idol group, and the paranoia from being stalked, it comes to a point where she suffers from psychosis, resulting in her encounters with the real Mima. I gotta be honest here, I like this kind of concept. Yeah, there are movies that deals with a split personality, but the way that it's executed here is pretty cool. But at the same time, it makes the movie somewhat confusing to follow. Because seeing the other version of yourself would be like a figment of the imagination, right? So how would a figment that only exists in one person's head affect anyone else in real life? Considering that the stalker was manipulated by the other Mima to kill the real one. If that was the case, what about Rumi? Yeah, Yeah, she seems like an average manager who's overprotective of Mima, but when the climax comes around, she's out and about trying to kill her. Was she also manipulated by the other Mima? Well, apparently she developed an alternate personality into thinking that she's the real Mima. Does Rumi also have a split personality that we don't know of? Is she doing this to herself? I don't know, my head hurts. But what about the murders in this movie? Because it wasn't clear who's behind them. Like the letter incident. There was a fan letter that was supposed to be for Mima, but since it was opened by the wrong guy, it exploded on him.
Everything's okay now. It was just a prank. Fortunately, Mr. Tadokoro wasn't badly hurt, so you shouldn't worry about it anymore, Mima, right?
Oh, that makes all the sense in the world. Okay, just a quick question. Does this look like a prank to you? I thought the stalker was behind it, but he just likes her too much. But then again, he could be manipulated by the other Mima, so you could really go either way. The boombox in the elevator, which I have 3 questions about that. 1. How does the murderer know where this certain guy lives? 2. How does the murderer know the specific time he was supposed to come home and use the elevator to put the boombox in? And 3. What killed him? The boombox is gone, there's blood everywhere, and his eyes are gouged out. That's a bit extreme. I mean, it could be possible that the murderer was in a different floor while this guy was taking the elevator, but it takes perfect timing to pull that off. And then there's the pizza incident, and the murderer behind that one is Mima. Yep, not the split personality, the regular Mima killing the creepy photographer from earlier. Look at her go. It could be possible that Mima is behind all these murders, but not the letter incident. You're telling me that Mima sent herself a fan letter that explodes? But considering that she has a split personality, she could be like Moon Knight. She just kills people every time she blacks out. Man, I'm already getting too deep into this movie, and I haven't even talked about the animation. Since the movie suffered from financial struggles during production, it will be expected that the movie would have less theatrical quality. And surprisingly enough, the animation still looks pretty good. There are a few minor flaws here and there, like how the character model moves around every time they talk. It looks a little off, but other than that, the animation is pretty good. The character designs are okay. It is an anime film after all, so it's not going to be as stylized as Disney characters, so that's expected. I just find it pretty darn impressive how they managed to pull it off in a smaller budget. Now, it may not seem like a lot, but try to compare that to the budget of Ghost in the Shell and you can tell the difference. Which is honestly saying a lot now that I think about it. Like, you had a budget of $100 million and you decided to make Cats. Oh, that's kinda rough. I can't believe I have to say this considering that this movie was considered as a masterpiece, but there's no point in lying. This movie is kinda confusing. And it's not because of the story, I was totally on board with it. It's just the number of plot holes. I could understand why certain things happen, but it doesn't ignore the fact that I had a lot more questions than there is answers by the end of the movie. I kept looking back at this movie over and over and over, and I still haven't got those answers, which made the plot holes even more complicated to figure out. But it might be just me, because as I stated before, I have a different perspective on certain movies, and I think this one might be one of them. However, I do like the concept. The idea of a celebrity losing grip on reality and coming face to face with another personality because of the decisions they made. It's such a cool idea, especially for a psychological thriller of all genres. And as much as I want to appreciate it, them plot holes are making it very complicated than it already is. But if there is one thing that I can remember this movie for, it's the stalker's voice.
The real Mimirin is nice. She emails me every day. And she says you're in her way.
Oh man, I can't with this guy. Ralph Bakshi. I don't know how often I'm going to be talking about this guy. I talked about American Pop, that one average animated film with some good qualities here and there. I talked about Coonskin, that has a fun time making fun of black people. And as much as I want to give sympathy, I just don't feel like it. At this point, I somewhat get the gist of movies that are made by him. It's like Adam Sandler, but animation. But there is one aspect of Bakshi's career that I haven't talked about. His fantasy films. Which is why I'm going to be talking about this today. Wizards! And we're not talking about that one Netflix show by DreamWorks. This animated post-apocalyptic film is the first fantasy film by Bakshi. Why? Well, he was generally interested in the genre. You really can't blame him. The movie was originally going to be a television series that was developed and pitched to CBS called T-Wit, but I guess that never happened. Bakshi did pitch War Wizards to 20th Century Fox in 1976, and it was greenlit. However, Bakshi was unable to complete the battle sequences with the budget Fox gave him. I mean, to be fair, the dude made coonskin. Because of this, Bakshi finished the film by paying out of his own pocket and using rotoscoping for the unfinished battle sequences. That's gonna work out okay. With that, the movie made an appearance in theaters on February 9th, 1977 and made some kind of profit at the box office. But the fact that this movie got a limited release kind of bothers me. Look, I understand that Fox didn't want to take the risk, but still. While a lot of people hasn't talked about this movie, it was all over the place for me. YouTube, TikTok, Florida State University. So, funny story, last year I went on a tour to Florida State University, and while I was looking around, I saw frames from the movie. It's kinda crazy that some colleges just casually have this stuff lying around. Coincidence? I don't know. But how did I exactly know it was from Wizards? It was from a poster. It's just a guy riding on a weird looking animal. What does this got to do with Wizards? Why do you think I'm talking about this movie right now? To answer that certain question. The movie follows a battle between two wizards of opposing powers, one representing the forces of magic and the other representing the forces of technology. Practically an allegory of environmental destruction caused by unchecked technology, and also the potentially destructive powers of propaganda. You could say that this is a warning of that kind of stuff, but at the same time, who's gonna take it seriously nowadays? Especially that this was coming from Ralph Bakshi of all animated. What the heck? Hold on, I might need to do another research on this movie because I might be missing something here. Oh, I guess that's kinda interesting. I can understand why they would do all that. This came out in the 70s, a few decades after World War II, but you couldn't come up with another symbol? No? Okay. I could say the only interesting thing about this movie is the backstory behind all of this. A long time ago, the planet Earth has been devastated by a nuclear war, taking 2 million years for the radioactive clouds to allow sunlight in. The humans who survived the apocalypse has been transformed into mutants, while humanity's true ancestors, trolls, fairies, elves, and dwarves, resurfaced. Okay, two things. One, I'm surprised that humans managed to survive after millions of years when they could have just moved on to another planet because Earth is clearly unsuitable for living. And two, if the fairy tale creatures resurface, where have they been all this time? Have they been underground? What made them go under? Everything has been great for the past 3,000 years of peace till Dahlia, Queen of Fairies, falls into a trance and gives birth to twins because that's possible. The kind-hearted Avatar and his evil mutated brother, Black Wolf. Why did Black Wolf have to be a mutant? Look, I know movies got a movie and everything, but Dahlia is literally the Queen of Fairies and yet they gotta make Black Wolf a mutant. So what, there'll be finally a balance between good and evil? Why couldn't Black Wolf be good as Avatar too? I don't know, it seems like total BS that he had to be born just to be evil. Also, you're telling me that all mutants have to be evil? Why couldn't some of them be good? Why am I giving sympathy to the bad guys? I don't know. Speaking of which, Black Wolf has an army and they look like bad news, alright. When in reality, they're really like the henchmen in a Disney movie.
There you go again, stepping on my lines, raining on my parade, costing me medals. Oh, damn! Ooh. They've killed Fritz! They've killed Fritz! Those horrible atrocity-filled vermin!
Not only that, Black Wolf is restoring technology. Tanks, planes, machine guns, even going out of his way to make his own technology. And his biggest trump card of all, an old school projector and some good old propaganda footages, which, how did he manage to restore the footages that has been buried underground for millions of years? And then we have Avatar, who went from a kind-hearted person to a grumpy little gnome. While he doesn't have a big army, he does have a small group. Eleanor, Weehawk, and Peace. In other words, Black Wolf's Boba Fett, but good. But unlike Black Wolf, he uses magic, so he's too good for all those fancy little gadgets.
Oh yeah, one more thing. I'm glad you changed your last name, you son of a bitch.
Oh, snap! I didn't know wizards could strap up too. Hey, Avatar, we're still cool, right? But for the final battle of the movie, it does seem a little anticlimactic. Cause for a guy who brought back this amount of technology, you would think Black Wolf will strap up too, or have a bulletproof vest, or heck, have like a special gun he uses. No? Well, this is a Ralph Bakshi film, so it's honestly no surprise that the animation here is practically similar to Coonskin. But this time around, they use archival footages for propaganda stuff, and I guess general footages for backgrounds as well. The character designs are pretty good for a fantasy/sci-fi film, especially that Bakshi drew fantasy artwork since the 1950s. Despite their good points here and there are some flaws, as expected, with the biggest one being... I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I knew about these sequences long before I saw this movie, and I will admit, this doesn't look great. It feels off, rushed, like they didn't have the time to finish it properly. And the more I look at these sequences, the more I wonder about the production behind this movie. So when I did some research on what happened, I just feel kinda guilty. Especially that Fox refused to increase the budget, so they had to find other options, so they did. Yeah, it's not perfect, but what other options they had other than cutting the sequences out entirely? At the end of the day, they did what they had to do to make it work, even if the result ended up like this. After watching 3 Ralph Bakshi films, I thought I would get nothing from each of them, considering that I knew what to expect. But I can finally say that I like this movie. Yes, the movie is weird, especially that it came out in the 70s. But it's the kind of weird that I like. And it's a shame that people barely talk about this movie because it does have a lot of potential. I guess it wasn't enough to deserve a sequel apparently. Some say it's cancelled, some say it's on hold, we'll never know. I just feel like this movie deserves a remake, or at the very least a redo of the battle sequences for obvious reasons. Despite all that, I just like the overall lore of this movie. Really gives you a good explanation of why this happened. Heck, this might be my only favorite Ralph Bakshi film since the quality of his movies after this kinda go downhill. And if you're a person who loves watching these weird animated movies, Wizards might be for you. Sorry Paranorman, but I got you next year because I have to talk about a movie about real estate. Sorry Paranorman, but you're gonna be talked about today. This animated comedy horror film is the second animated feature coming from Laika. I hope I pronounced that right. Man, what an animation studio this is. Worked on nothing but bangers. Coraline, Box Trolls, Kubo and the Two Strings, The Missing Link, and of course, Paranorman. The idea of the film came from the one and only Chris Butler. He's that one guy who worked on majority of these films. To keep it short, the film was in production for 3 years with the animation part lasting about 2 years. With that, the movie popped out of its grave in theaters on August 17th, 2012, and it did okay, critically and commercially. Heck, it was even nominated for Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Unfortunately, it lost to Pixar as usual. Paranorman has always been my favorite film from Laika. Yeah, I like Coraline as much as the next person, but there's always something about Paranorman that just kinda sticks out to me. That and the Box Trolls. And since I got a movie about real estate out of the way, I can finally talk about my next favorite thing. The movie follows a story of Norman Babcock. As much as I want to make fun of that last name, at least it's better than Babadook. A young boy who can communicate with ghosts is given the task of ending a 300-year-old witch's curse on his town. A boy who can casually talk to ghosts. How on earth did that happen? Look, I know it's a work of fiction and you can really do whatever you want, and I really never had this question when I first saw this movie, but now thinking about it, how could someone inherit such an ability like that? Whatever it is, it gives his uncle a reason to stalk on him. Yeah, you heard that right. And apparently Mr. Prendergast over here can see ghosts too. Maybe it was out of random, but I thought it was because it linked all the way back to Agatha Prendergast, aka Aggie, a distant relative of Mr. Prendergast and Norman. So Aggie somehow got powers, and the entire town mistook her powers for witchcraft, so they tried to execute her. But that took a turn because Aggie just started to kill everyone in the room. Is that how she kickstarted the curse? She just obliterated everyone in the room? And years later, they just come out of the grave, zombies and all, but what was the purpose of that? To terrorize everyone in town? Well, clearly not, because they're not just your average zombies, because they're kind of self-aware. And then we have Aggie, who's just having a mental breakdown. Like, look at this, she's destroying the forest right now. I guess it goes down to one question. Did Aggie used to talk to ghosts when she had these powers? I'm just saying, Norman and Mr. Prendergast might inherit a strip of her powers. And I just like how the town is literally based off of the execution of the so-called witch-themed shops. There's a whole school play about it.
And rise from your graves as the living dead. Your souls doomed to...
It's honestly kinda crappy. Heck, the entire name of the town is practically a red flag. Whoa, that's a cool name for a town. I wanna live there now. Characters. Considering that I only care about Norman, the other characters aren't really doing much for me, so moving on. If there is one thing that I love about these Laika movies, is how the crew manages to push themselves with each film. Like how the next film is an improvement from the previous. And there are things Laika does better compared to Aardman Animations, like how the character designs are stylized and how smooth the animation is. And that's especially the case with Paranorman. And the other good thing that I can say about this movie is that the overall aesthetic just screams Halloween. Yeah, Monster House takes place on the Halloween day, but Paranorman is practically saying, hey guys, I'm the perfect movie to watch on Halloween. And what's interesting about this movie is that it pays homage to the horror movies from the 1950s. I don't know why it took me this long for me to learn that, but hey, I learn new things every day. As much as I can appreciate Paranorman for what it is, it's too bad that I only see this movie once a year, especially in October. Look, I have seen so many movies throughout my life, too many movies, to a point where it's hard for me to look back to certain movies that I actually like. But other than that, Paranorman is a great movie, and while Coraline is great too, I always look back to Paranorman from time to time, you know? Whoa, that was the shortest conclusion I have ever done. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a streaming service. It's amazing. You can watch movies and TV shows on demand. Nothing extra, just play the movie and it starts for you. After you're done, what can I do next? The year is 2002, just an example, and this is a DVD. It's amazing. It's literally a movie at the palm of your hand, and when you put that bad boy into a DVD player, it has presentation like no other. And when you're done watching the movie, well, what better way to get more out of it by checking out some special features to learn more about a certain movie. A special feature in the world of physical media is practically behind the scenes content. Stuff like bloopers, deleted scenes, some featurettes here and there. And if it's an animated movie, throw in an animated short on there, or two of them on a good day. At least that's what's to expect of a special feature in the modern day, but if we're talking about the 2000s, they had a lot of charm to them. Especially when DVDs was a big thing at the time, so companies took that as an opportunity to shove a lot of content on there. Games and activities, sneak peeks to other movies, advertisements to a certain movie. It was the perfect way to waste an afternoon. Back in the days of VHS tapes, you have to wait after the movie for a featurette, sneak peek, or some kinds of advertisement.
Stay tuned after the feature for a special program, Walt Disney's Bambi, the magic behind the masterpiece.
But why am I talking about special features in a DVD when Blu-rays have a lot more content in a DVD format? Some DVDs today doesn't have special features in them, and on top of that, you can just look up all this behind the scenes stuff on the YouTube. And platforms like Movies Anywhere and Disney Plus actually throw in some extras onto movies now, so they're kinda doing God's work. Again, DVDs used to be special back then. Probably because it's out of nostalgia blindness, but I feel like special features in a DVD feels more interesting than literally anywhere else. Though, to be fair, I was never a fan of special features growing up. I mean, I looked through the special features in Curious George and the Cat in the Hat, but I was exposed to a lot of VHS tapes. But as I got older, I started to appreciate them for what they are, which really gave me an idea of what I want to talk about. But how was I going to make this work exactly, considering I don't have every single DVD in the world? And while I've been collecting DVDs, I've been collecting a lot of Blu-rays as well. So I decided to go through my collection and pick out the certain editions I so happen to own because they're a lot more interesting than a standard DVD. Special Edition, Bueller Edition, Deluxe Edition, those kind of stuff. And oh boy, I'm in for a wild ride, am I? I'm not gonna be ranking them or rating them on a scale of 1 to 10. I'm just gonna go through all the special features it includes. Now, some of you might be asking, why do all of this when I could just look up the special features on YouTube? Because I want to experience it for myself. So with that, I might as well get them over with. Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest 2-disc Special Edition. Kinda rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? And this is the only special edition from Disney that I actually have. Disney always made their DVDs feel special, shoving as much content as they could on there. Like, if you wanted a special edition of Bambi, they'll go out of their way to make it the most magical thing it could ever be. But let's see how well Disney did with this one. Oh man, it comes with 3D packaging, you already know this is gonna be good. Immerse yourself in pirate lore, well don't mind if I do. In disc 1, we got 2 special features, some commentary and some bloopers. Oh snap, they got Verizon in this? But the real party is in disc 2, obviously. I guess the interesting thing about the special features here is the making of Davy Jones in the Kraken. Considering that this movie was praised for its groundbreaking CGI, it's pretty cool to learn how the crew managed to make it work.
Brought it into Photoshop. I saw him using it and I said, hey Ron, what's that? It looks great. And he's like, oh, it's a dirty coffee cup. And so I brought that in. All that work with the coffee stained styrofoam cup gets applied right here on the face of Davy Jones right here.
And then there's the premiere, which I was in fetus mode when all this went down, but it's kind of cool to see what went down in 2006. I would love to go to one of these. They really live up to hype, which is honestly saying a lot. Flag of Our Fathers, yet another 2-disc special edition, and you're gonna laugh at this one. So Pirates of the Caribbean got me so hyped that it kind of cooled down a bit with this one. I mean, we were off to a very good start, but this is just kind of meh to me. I mean, this movie is inspired by a historical moment in World War II, so I'm really not that surprised, but it really does feel like a history lesson through and through, which isn't a bad thing. It's always a good thing to learn more about an event that this movie was based on, but there's really nothing interesting here that I can point out, really. Saving Private Ryan Special Limited Edition. Okay, big guy, what makes you so special from the rest? Well, nothing much really, considering that there's only 5 special features on here. And this movie is inspired by D-Day from World War II, so it's practically Flag of Our Fathers, but with less content for some reason. But at least I know there's a D-Day museum down in New Orleans, so that counts for something. Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Bueller Edition. And oh, what is this? Class album? I wonder what that is. It's just a photo shoot with the main cast, which I guess it's fine, but I guess it would have been a lot cooler if they had the whole cast in a photo shoot. Just saying. I mean, they also got some interesting stuff here, like the lost tapes and the featurette explaining the casting of the movie, so yeah, there's that. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Those Aren't Pillows Edition. What kind of tagline is that? We got some featurettes, previews to other movies, and a deleted scene.
Isn't he a nice fella?
The absolute audacity. At least I can learn more about John Hughes in this one because, I don't know, I just don't know him that much other than Home Alone. But I gotta say, just simply traveling through plane is like the most random way to get a movie idea, but at least it worked considering that this movie is relatable to the masses. A Few Good Men Special Edition, the only legal drama film that I actually like. We got some commentary, 2 featurettes, some theatrical trailers, and filmographies of the cast and crew, which is honestly a nice addition. Yeah, you could look these up on Google and everything, but it's still a nice addition. And it's honestly kind of cool to know that this movie was adapted from a play. How did I not know this already, considering that I could just find out through a Wikipedia page? I don't know, that's a good question. Groundhog Day, special 15th anniversary edition. Well, happy belated birthday. I hope you have a lot of content on your table. Why do I even get my hopes up? We got some commentary, 3 featurettes, and some deleted scenes.
So just pay attention to Officer Friendly here. You look, you look again, then a quick double, and then you go, okay?
Cool. At least the study of groundhogs featurette is kind of like the only interesting thing in the package, but everything else? So much for an anniversary. Matilda Special Edition. Yes, I'm one of those suckers that has a soft spot for this movie, and it's a good thing I do because this DVD has a lot of meat in its bones when it comes to content.
Lesson number 4, civility. Civilized people always maintain an attitude of complete serenity.
Very civilized, yeah. On top of featurettes and a character gallery, we also got some games to play. Let's check them out. A truly terrible test is terrible because Trunchbull is in charge. Might as well go for somewhat dreadful. It's really not that terrifying because it's kinda easy. You just gotta answer a few questions and you're done. But you gotta hurry up and answer because you're on a pretty strict time limit. Well, geez, and I know that's the whole point, but still. Might as well be a good time to check out some classroom games. There's only 2 of them, Spelling Bee and Math Magic, and they seem a little bit basic, but this is Matilda we're talking about here. It's always about learning whenever you like it or not.
Let's say you want to know what 9 times 3 is. Just count 3 fingers, starting at the left. When you get to your 3rd finger, bend it down. To the left of the finger that's down, there are 2 fingers. That's the first digit in the answer. And to the right, there are 7 fingers. That's the second digit. So 9 times 3 is 27. Isn't that cool?
You know how better my life would have been if I had this information beforehand? I mean, it would have been slightly better, but at least I wouldn't look like an idiot. Get Rid of Miss Trunchbull is an interesting one. It's a trivia game where you have to watch certain clips from the movie and answer questions about a certain detail. It really motivates you to pay real close attention to these scenes. Make Magic with Matilda. It's a memory game. That's cool. Terrified of Trunchbull? Cool. But overall, Matilda is an interesting one that has a lot to offer here. I mean, considering that this is a family film, it's kind of expected to have a lot of content on there.
I was screaming my head off, right? I was screaming my head off in that scene because, I mean, it was really crazy. I kept asking if we could blow up another one, and Mara, she wanted to blow up like 1 million of them. She just wanted to blow up TVs every day after that.
I would check on your friend if I were you. The Mask of Zorro Deluxe Edition. It may not have as much content as Matilda has, but it has more interesting things to offer here. A featurette, some deleted scenes, advertising materials, costume designs, a music video, and some filmographies. And on top of all of that, you also have an exclusive scene and sneak peek to the sequel, The Legend of Zorro. For a deluxe edition of a movie is actually not that bad. The Mummy Collector's Edition. Is it really worth collecting this thing? Well, let's see for ourselves. We got ourselves a featurette, visual and special effects formation, deleted scenes, filmographies, and Egyptology 101, which, what is that? Why, a basic way to learn more about Egypt, of course, which I guess is a cool addition, but there are better sources out there, so meh. On top of all of that, it includes the nostalgic relic of the 2000s. DVD-ROM features an enhanced way of experiencing a DVD. So what's the difference between special features in a DVD and the features in a DVD-ROM? To watch special features in a DVD, you're going to need a DVD player, obviously, but to access DVD-ROM features, you're going to need a computer with a disk drive built in, and you need to download the interactual player. So with that, you will have more content than before. So basically, there are special features in the DVD that are made exclusively for PC. I think. This is my first time learning about this stuff. And considering that my laptop is modern, there was no getting around that. But I do have a gadget that can play DVDs on it. Talk about a lucky break. And I actually tried the interactual player a few months back. There were some flaws, but it was better than nothing. And here it is, and it honestly feels like a far cry from the original main menu, but whatever. On top of the features we already had before, we got some postcards, some screensavers, and an interactive game, but to play it, I would need a plugin that I can't even get. At least I got what was offered. Surprisingly enough, I have a few DVDs that has DVD-ROM features, so I might as well go off the trail and try out Scooby-Doo with the Cyber Chase. I'm honestly not that surprised. At least the UI is different. We have the Warner Brothers logos here and there. And the only thing I can do now is check out Scooby Games. Old school PC games developed by the Learning Company, the same guys who made Reader Rabbit. So I might as well try out Scooby-Doo Phantom of the Night.
All right, gang, let's...
Wait, what? I honestly had no idea what I was supposed to do here, but at least it has its own version of Tapper, so that's kind of cool. I feel like now's a good time to move on. Friday Deluxe Edition. Is it even a deluxe edition? We got 2 featurettes, 2 interviews, some deleted scenes, and 2 music videos. At least I found the deleted scenes funny, so I guess it's worthy of being called a deluxe edition. You know, it's pretty cool that I managed to spend the whole day just going through them all. Yeah, some of them were a bit boring, but other than that, it was pretty fun. Again, I could have just looked all of them up on YouTube and watched them that way, but I feel like it's more interesting trying to experience it for myself. And for those who are a big fan of all things physical media, they would experience it for themselves too. I mean, it's probably because of nostalgia blindness. Again, I'm really not that sure. But it's best to appreciate special features in the DVD now, while they're still relevant. I mean, DVDs are like 30 years old now. That's insane. Companies usually puts little effort into DVDs, and that's never fun. And most consumers usually prefers Blu-rays or 4K UHDs over a DVD. But who knows, I may go back into the topic tackling Blu-rays, because when it comes to 4K releases, I hope you're a big fan of commentary.